Tēnā koutou katoa and good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me here today to talk to you about cellular agriculture and cultured meat. Aotearoa, New Zealand is a country of meat eaters and meat producers. Nearly 90% of us eat meat at least once a week, and sheep and beef farming is an agricultural staple for our country. Globally, New Zealand meat products are pretty good, right? So we have a relatively lower carbon footprint product, and we have strict protocols around animal welfare and the use of antibiotics and genetically modified organisms. Cultivated meat is one of the most exciting, innovative, and disruptive technologies to occur in my lifetime. Please join me today to consider what this means for New Zealand. What are the opportunities of this technology for our food producers, our food scientists, and our current and future consumers? Globally, there are concerns regarding the climate, biodiversity loss, and animal welfare, also food security. This has led to an increasing number of new products appearing in the alternative protein categories, some of which are shown on the screen here. We're now seeing these new product offerings come onto our supermarket shelves, and this is, of course, in addition to our normal meat and cheese that we're used to. So these so-called alternative proteins, they may be sourced from plants like the Impossible Burger, or their components can be produced using cells. This is called cellular agriculture. The two products that I'm showing up here contain either ingredients that come from cells or cells themselves. We have a salmon sashimi produced by Wild Type, and we have an ice cream that contains whey protein, which has been produced by cells. So cells are the basic building blocks of life. They contain hereditary material, and they make copies of themselves. They can also be thought of as tools and as ingredients. We can hijack the molecular machinery of these cells, and we can tell them what we want them to do. We can tell these cells to go on and make a different chemical or to make a different protein so that they can produce a product for us. We can take those cells that we've now altered their genetics of, we can put them in something called a bioreactor, and this looks pretty much like your beer brewing setup. Here they make lots and lots of copies of themselves when they're put under the right environment, and then we can take those cells and we can burst them open and pull out the good bits that we're after. This might be a chemical, it might be a protein, and some of the different things that these could be used in are flavorings like vanilla. It could be those milk proteins that I mentioned before, or it could even be as simple as having egg white so that you no longer have to have the yolk if you don't want it. So this technology is not new. We have actually been using cells to produce products for a really long time. So insulin is one of the first examples of this, and in a food context, we can think about rennet enzymes that are used in cheese making. Now, globally, over 90% of the world's rennet is produced from cell cultures, as opposed to being extracted from the fourth stomach of a cow. We can also make this more complicated and actually have the cells themselves present in the final product. In the case of producing meat, which is what I'm talking to you about today, this involves taking a very small biopsy of cells from an animal, like a cow, taking these cells, a pure population of stem cells, and again putting them in a bioreactor, although the conditions are now getting a little bit more complicated. We can then, via the magic of food science, take these cells and turn those into a product. So this might be a processed product like a sausage or a hamburger patty, or it might even be the holy grail of producing a steak. So the technique that is used to do this is called tissue engineering, and this is what my background is in. So tissue engineering involves taking the right cells, combining them with a scaffolding material to give shape and structure, and hitting those cells with the right biological signals at the right times so that they turn into the correct thing and a functional tissue can be formed. This technique is most often used in regenerative medicine, but with cultivated meat production, we're now proposing to take this medical technology and use it to produce food. This was first investigated in the early 2000s by NASA when they cultured goldfish cells. So here the goal was looking at a food source for space travel. Then in 2012, Mark Post from the Netherlands launched the first cell-based meat prototype. If we're now thinking of tissue engineering as a way to produce food, these cells, scaffolds, and signals become ingredients. The cells need to be safe, healthy, and ethically sourced. The scaffold needs to be edible and it needs to be food grade. And those signals and media need to be both friendly to the consumer and something that we want to eat, and they also need to be cost effective. So this technology is challenging, but it is not impossible. With the right innovation, infrastructure, and energy source, we now have an opportunity for a whole new product to be on our supermarket shelves. A meat that is produced by in vitro cell culture. Meat that is cruelty-free, safe, healthy, and environmentally friendly. Meat that can be eaten with a clear conscience. The cultivated meat industry is experiencing massive growth. If you look at these graphs shown here from 2021, and this is being compared to the total 5 years prior, we're seeing a huge acceleration in this area. In the last year, there has been nearly $1.4 billion invested in this area, compared to $500 million for the previous 5 years. There have been 86 companies launched in the last year in this area, and these are companies who are both making those entire products, but also making different parts, different ingredients that might go into these products. We're also seeing more publications appearing in academic literature, which is something that I'm very excited about. A lot of this research is taking place behind closed doors, and this means that it's really, I think, going to halt the level of acceleration that can occur in this field. So what we need, I think, for this is we need more public funding for this area such that we can really realise its full potential. So funded by MB and the Ritter Institute, which is a food research institute here in New Zealand, I'm leading a project where we are looking at taking primary cells from high health status New Zealand livestock. We are then working to establish culture conditions that have been optimised for both performance, but also safety, nutrition, and the consumer experience of these foods. We're then studying what happens inside the food matrix itself. The first of these products that are hitting the shelves, and there is a product that's approved for consumption in Singapore, are what we refer to as hybrid products. So these are products that are not totally made up of the cells, but they have other ingredients, normally plant proteins in there too. And what we're looking at is what do those cells add to this product? What nutritional benefits come from having cells present alongside your plant proteins? How does this work when it comes to scaling up the production of these products? And if we're going to have to do things to these cells to make them grow faster, how are we going to make sure that that is regulated in such a way that it is safe and that people actually want to eat these products? Is there a superior cow? So one thing that is always interesting to us is where do those cells come from? We know that there are animals that are better than others, right? So, for example, the Belgian blue cattle. So the Belgian blue is a super muscly cow, and this is because of its genes. Do these genetic traits translate into a cell culture system? This is something that's not known yet and is really exciting to explore. It also, I think, offers an excellent opportunity for New Zealand. So we know a lot about the genetics of our animals. This is an area, I think, where we have a massive competitive advantage. Finally, at the heart of the research that we are doing is looking at what the opportunities and risks of this technology are to New Zealand, and particularly to the New Zealand primary sector. We are really used to our food coming from a farm like this. So in fact, this is actually the farm of one of my PhD students. On the other hand, if we propose an alternative to this as where our food comes from, we start throwing around words like fake meat, franken meat. There's a big ick factor that's coming through. We come at this as a country from a place of extreme privilege. For the foreseeable future, New Zealanders won't have to consume these products. However, I would argue that as a country with an abundant and very well-established food system, we have a moral obligation to work on this technology for the rest of the world. And we don't have to just be altruistic about it. There is massive economic gains to be made in this area, and the world is not going to wait for New Zealand to get on board if we want a piece of that pie. A San Francisco-based plant-based meat company called Black Sheep actually has a product, and they market that product as being New Zealand heritage lamb. A collaborator of mine was really interested in this, and so he actually reached out to them and asked what their connection was to New Zealand, and there was none. They knew, however, that New Zealand products had a strong reputation, and this was the reputation that they wanted to build their product on. I recently met someone from this company at a conference and had some poorly received joke about how I was going to sue them on behalf of New Zealand, so you can thank me later for that. But the thing is, if we don't capitalize on this reputation and this branding, other people will. In my opinion, the future of food in New Zealand should be about looking at the and rather than the or. We're not saying stop doing what we do so well. We're not saying stop producing meat. But we are saying, let's get involved and diversify our products and take these new opportunities. This could be as suppliers of cells, or it could be as suppliers of the meat products themselves. We could be suppliers of intellectual property and smart people. I mean, we know that we are some of the world leaders in food science. How do we ensure that our children, and this is my daughter, and also the next billion children, are able to not only consume the high quality meat that we can, but also have choice, and choice to take these products and others without having a detrimental environmental impact, and also that they have options. I want our future children to have choice to consume a variety of protein-rich products, and also to have opportunities to be innovators and employees of a world-leading food system. Thank you.